Yeah, thank you very much. Most kind. As a performance poet, I'm often asked, could you go and do that somewhere else? Kind of goes with the same. But I occasionally get invited to perform in public places, and when you stand up in public, very often people assume that you're going to start going on about God. Right? Now, I am now going to go on about God, so as not to assuage your fears. But I'm not going to. I wouldn't like to disrespect anyone's religion or faith, because I believe that everyone has the right to believe in whatever made-up bollocks they should want to. It's entirely your life. It's where would we be without imagination? Milton Keynes. So I'm not overtly religious, but I did this poem in a pub, and a guy came up to me afterwards, and he pretty much kind of ranted to me everything that Richard Dawkins had told him to believe, because he kind of said, "You think that you could come here and kind of ram your beliefs down our throat?" And I said, "But did you even listen to a single word of the poem?" And his answer was genius. It was, "I don't even need to listen to you to know that you're wrong." Which kind of shows that the difference between genius and stupidity is that genius has limits. But anyway, this poem, it goes like this. God, the Father, the Almighty, Lord of all creation, spake thus unto his children. How many times do I have to tell you lot to stop that bloody fighting? Can't you sort your problems out amongst yourselves without dragging me into it and expecting me to take sides? If I have to come down there again, I'll smite the bloody lot of you. And mankind answered unto the Father, God, it's so unfair. They started it. I didn't ask to be born. Some with real existential angst even said, you can't tell us what to do, you're not our real dad. Mighty was the wrath of the Lord, and spake he thus, as long as you live under my roof, you'll do as you bloody told. When you've got your own place, you can do as you bloody well like. And while we're at it, will you start to clean your mess up after yourselves and turn the bloody lights off when you go out of a room? You seem to think that I can make it just appear from nowhere. I'm not some kind of bloody miracle worker. I'm really angry at this point. And at that point, God's wife came in from the kitchen where she'd been doing the washing up. No, they had a rota, he'd made everything, it was her turn. They just had supper and it had kicked off again like at the last one. You know, where their eldest one had got up and stormed out, gone and got arrested. He'd been banged up all weekend and nobody knew when he was coming back. It was a nightmare. Well anyway, God's wife came in from the kitchen, and spake she unto him thus, don't take your anger out on them, it's you that gets them started. You should try and set a better example, because they only want to be like you. And muttering something under his breath about how they'd all be better off without him, God went out into his potting shed where he could have a smoke in peace. The voice of Mrs. God carried on after him, you be sure and wipe your feet before you come back in and walk across my kitchen floor. And the Almighty contemplated unto himself, okay, he wasn't perfect. He never seemed to be around when they needed him, but hey, he worked a 6-day week and he couldn't be everywhere at once. Besides, he had other things to think about. He still hadn't got around to fixing that hole in the roof, and now he had to figure out what he was going to do with all the polar bears when the ice caps melted. Thank you.